Linda, I admire your work for quite some time. So I have to say, I'm very happy to have you aboard the Transatlantic. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here on the floating in the ocean with you.
Plus, I love the Australian accent. I gotta say, it's one of the accents I love the most. I mean, it's like, even if it's sometimes it really get tough to understand, but I love it, man.
Yeah, I feel like my accent is a little bit, has thinned out over the many years that I've been away. I like to think of it as a supermodel accent where you can't completely place it.
Like, okay, good. So I'm gonna go through the 7 questions like it's 7 C's. Okay, let's go with the first one. Okay, look, there is a quote that reminds me of oceans, and it's about humankind. To me, humankind is an ocean of flesh, feelings, like blood vessels, like, the quote says, "This might be the curse of human race, not that we are different from one another, but we are so alike." Now, what do you think is the common trait that we all share?
Well, look, I think right now we're all pretty overwhelmed with modern life, right? There's so much information all around us. I mean, we've had 3 years where we're pretty much, many of us being glued to our screens. We might want a break. We can't always have that, but there's just so much. I mean, there's your phone and social media and TV where you can binge entire seasons, and so I think that's trained us all a little bit to demand to be engaged and entertained all the time.
All the time.
Even people aren't necessarily watching TV, they're watching TikTok. When was the last time you read a book? I mean, you probably read one this morning. Me and everyone else. And that has an impact on what we do, right? Because, we are constantly trying to get people's attention and to get them to engage and to listen and to care about what we say. So I think that affects what we do. We're not just competing with brands, we're competing with everything out in the world, like the best shows, Succession, The Last of Us, TikTok, everything. So, what we do has to be as engaging as that or more engaging.
That's very interesting. You know what I gotta say is like one common trait that I can see is truly like what you mentioned, like the attention span decrease. And even like, someone like me, for instance, like I'm an avid reader. So if I look at like a Simone from like the 90s and Simone from 2023, I still read at the same pace, with the same kind of intensity, but my attention span has decreased greatly. So I remember in the 90s, like I would go like through maybe 10 pages without even like, lifting my eyes off the book. Now, I think like I can only go like 2 pages and then I have to lift my eyes off the book, do something else and then go back to it. And like truly I can see that my attention span has decreased over the years. And it's quite interesting.
Feel it. Yeah, I used to try and read a book a week and now there's no way. There's no way. Yeah.
Okay, second question. Look, life is an ocean crossing and our career is one of the routes that we take. I personally like to live by these words. In your 20s, you try everything. In your 30s, you try to figure out what you do best. In your 40s, you make money doing what you do best. So to get like to 50s in a good shape. Now, if I look at your career, you had an amazing career. You have had an amazing career. And at which point of the journey you feel like you are now?
I feel like I didn't necessarily go this route. I kind of decided early on what I wanted to do, which was advertising, and I went all in. I wasn't like a child prodigy like David Droga, who left school and was a CD at 21. No, I got a degree, and then after that I decided, advertising's it for me. I'm going to do it, and I was obsessed. and I went all in and I worked really hard, and I've been doing that ever since. Obviously, different iterations. But you know, it's been amazing. It's taken me all over the world. I've met so many talented people, had a great time. Where am I right now? I think that I still haven't done my best work yet. And so I still want to do my best work. So I'm working with people where that's all of our goal, is to do amazing work that gets us excited, that gets people out in the world excited, gets our clients excited. That's the goal. Right. So that's where I'm at. I'm not sure if it's a decade.
Right. Let's look at that obsession for a second, because you mentioned the word obsession is so paramount. Because I like, you know, there is a lot of like philosophical statement about how you need to be obsessed to really excel at your craft. Somehow you have to have that kind of ability to over focus and let everything else like around almost like fall apart. You just do what your thing and you focus. That's the obsession. And I saw that with my life. Like, you know, I think my obsession has always been like writing. And to the point that everything else around me fell apart, because I truly like cultivated only one talent only. Not that I had many, but it was like, and everything else, it was so unbalanced. I am truly a disaster at everything else. What about your obsession? If you look at your career, do you think that your obsession hasn't changed, or does it have the same intensity, or has like decreased?
I think I'm still a little bit obsessive. You know, in those early days, as you know, we have to learn this craft, and it is quite a learning curve, and you really have to dig in and do the work to learn it. I was really crazy, you know, like people would say, what are you even doing? Just do this or do that. Like, what? You're working for free? What? So yeah, I was full on. I think I'm still obsessed with certain things, maybe not to that same degree, but yeah, I'm still pretty passionate about everything that I do.
That's good. That's good. I think the obsession is truly the fire that we need to keep us alive. Definitely. Look, there are portions of the ocean that they are merely transitional, right? So they are there to transport you from one place to another. You know, for instance, like the Panama Canal is very important, but it's very transitional, right? So now there is a song in music called like Little James, and it comes from the Oasis band, and it doesn't often get the credits that they deserve. I personally think that is a really good song, but there's a lot of people that think that's one of the shittiest songs Oasis ever like wrote. By the way, it's a song that belonged to an album of the Oasis like called Standing on the Shoulder Giants. Now, that particular album was a transitional album from the 90s into like the 2000s, the new millennium. Now, when you look at your work, is there anything, either a campaign or an idea or a feeling that's like resulted in some sort of art that truly mark that transition between the 90s and the 2000s? Because I think it was, for our generation, it was a great transition.
You know, I've had a lot of transitions in my career. You know, I think all of us have. When we're in this industry, it evolves so quickly. You know, I started out, I grew up in a coal and steel town, a blue-collar steel town in Australia. And from there, I went and studied fine art, which is not what most people do coming from that town. And then I did my degree. I got my fine arts degree. I completely ignored that and decided to do advertising. That was a huge transition. Worked hard to work out how to do that, put a portfolio together, got a job at McCann Erickson in Sydney. A year later, got a job at Wyden in Portland. Another massive transition. You know, that was Australia to the US, that was Sydney to Portland, in some ways even more of a transition, and Australian sport to American sport. You know, there was certainly a lot of work there. You know, there was a campaign that we did that I really think showed, you know, that step up of work. We did this campaign, and I did a spot that was a part of that. What are you getting ready for Nike? And we did.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Called Footwork, where this kid does everything with his feet. He's a soccer player. He opens the door, he pours his cereal, he tries to eat it. we'd had Lasse Holstrom on as to direct this, who did Spider House Rules and What's Eating Gilbert Grape. We got there the first morning, and before it even shot anything, he had a medical emergency, a family medical emergency. It was like, no, we're not going to get to work with Lasse. And the production company's like, don't worry, we'll get another director. We'll get another director. It's like, oh, who's this person? It was Alfonso Cuarón, and the DP was Emmanuel. And that was the time at Wyden where you're just working with the best of the best. And this was before he'd really taken off. So that was certainly a campaign that shows a transition. From there, I went to Wyden and Kennedy, Amsterdam, and transitioned from an art director to a writer, which was a pretty big deal. I did a pan-European campaign there for Nike Women's, that was quite...
Tell me about that transition, because I think, like, you're right, it's a big deal. Sometimes you hear it, like, you know, for instance, I'm a writer and I'm very visual, but I never transition, like, you know, from writing to art director. But I think the transition for art director to writing, it's quite interesting. Tell me about that transition, about more, like, what made you, what pushed you to, like, truly, like, you know, build a bridge and then, like, go to the other side of that bridge and go to art writing?
Yeah, I just kind of started doing it, and I really enjoyed it. Like, you know, my partner and I would be working and I'd be writing scripts or headlines, and I just loved it. And so I kept doing it, and you know, they gave me a chance at Wyden to do that, and I just swapped over because I was really quite passionate about it. I mean, I'm not, you know, that is not my obsession, writing. I'm not the best writer in the world, but I just love doing it.
Did it change? What about your self-perception? Did it change anything about the way you were looking at yourself? Because look, like, if I were to transition to art director, like, you know, in the next few months, it will kind of trigger a change in, like, self-perception of myself, because I see myself as a writer.
Yeah.
Then, like, if one day I'm going to start working as an art director, almost like it's a different Simone. Did it happen to you? Or it was just, like, very natural? It was already there.
I sort of see myself and saw myself as a creative, you know, when you're working with other people, everyone's, you know, a part of it. And so I didn't really identify so much as an art director, but as an awesome creative. So it wasn't Linda the writer. It was just, you know, something else, a different skill that I was doing to make great work.
But I love the story of the directors. I think,
and they were so awesome. I mean, Emmanuel's like, do you want to look through the camera? It's like, no, I don't, but okay. You know, they were just so humble and sweet and amazing.
You know, I do think there are times you say, like, you know, you walk into the set, you know that you are working with the best, right? And I think that's in my career, for instance, happened that there are brief times where you find yourself in a moment and you say to yourself, this is as good as it gets. It's never gonna get as good as this. Maybe it's gonna get closer, but this moment, this very moment, is as good as it gets. And I think, to me, all the realization only happened too late. So when I look back in the hindsight, I was like, oh, that was the best moment I ever had, but never really at that moment.
Yeah, you never, usually it's hindsight, right? You know, there was amazing directors that we worked with. Zack Snyder, before he was, you know, huge.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great time.
Great. Okay. The ocean puts you in a contemplative state, and it forces you to ponder about your journey. We talk about it. Now, let me tell you a quick story. In 2013, and you live in LA, in 2013, a dance club opened in Hollywood, Standard Hotel. And this dance club was named after Giorgio Moroder, one of the greatest composers of, like, the last 3 decades. I mean, for people that are not familiar with his name, is the guy that, like, you know, composed the soundtrack of Midnight Express, or, like, you know, Scarface, many soundtracks. Moroder actually came to LA and visited the club once, and he only say this thing. He say, I never saw people dancing to my music. I was too busy working. I was always in the studio. That's the only thing he say. Kind of stuck with me. because I think that a lot of time we are always like, working, going like, through one campaign, like one campaign is done and we go into another, but we forget to actually take the time to enjoy like the work we created. Does it happen to you? Has it happened to you? I mean, like, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what it takes: hard work and rigor and obsession. And, I wonder if his music would have been playing in that hot Hollywood club if he hadn't done the work.
Right.
So I get it, but I also think, you need time, you need a break. We're constantly putting out creativity and you have to refill the tank. You have to get out there and absorb our culture and be out in the world. But yeah, of course, I think we all love it when we see our work, on the Super Bowl or on TV or out in the world and people talking about it and sharing it. We did a Martha Stewart action figure last year for one of our clients, 19 Crimes Wine, Martha's Shard. And we sent it to the Today Show, and Hoda and Jenna played with that for 8 minutes. Jenna ripped the head off it. We didn't pay them a cent for that, but they just loved it. And we've just made a Snoop figure. And
No.
I know Snoop loved it so much. He's taken it on his world tour and he set up a whole Instagram for little Snoop, even before we finished the campaign, which we've just finished this week. So that's cool. And then
Did you sit down with the feeling of like, this is cool? This is cool. I mean,
yeah,
that's what it's like dancing to the music for like,
Yeah, it's cool. It's amazing when someone like Snoop
Right.
likes your work. We just did a concert in the Upside Down for Stranger Things and Doritos that got 4 point something billion PR impressions. So it feels good. It's a bit of a high, as
Definitely.
when you get that out there and it gets done. But then it's on to the next one. I don't think we have time to rest on our laurels. There's another brief waiting, right? Always another brief or 10.
The race, man. You know what? Americans could like learn a little bit about more otium. In Latin, the word is otium. It means like, and then it got translated in like il dolce far niente, which means like, doing nothing is an art. We Italians are really good at it. But I think
Yes.
like, it's really like, doing nothing sometimes, even like for like a couple of minutes or like 5 minutes or like an entire hour, it can truly like change perspective on things. Anyway.
I couldn't agree more. And we try not to work weekends because I do think if you can have that mental break, let your subconscious work, you're actually much stronger on Monday.
Absolutely.
If you're cranking through. So when I say work, it's not like, just never taking a break.
Yeah.
I think those breaks are as important as
Also because it takes time to unplug. I noticed, for instance, like on Friday, right? You unplug. But it reminds me a lot of like when you plug a guitar chord and like you still hear the sound, right? Like you plug it, but the sound goes on like maybe for 30 seconds longer. And I think the same way is like you unplug, but you still have all the stress on you for maybe an hour or two after you unplug. And I think I found myself completely, I never completely detached, but I found myself, let's say, like quite clean on Saturday morning. And then Sunday, like past lunch, comes creeping in like a wave.
Scaries, yes, yeah,
Know what I
and
mean?
you know yourself. If you take like a 2-week vacation, it's really not until the second week that you're like,
yes,
I'm on vacation now, and you've forgotten, and you're not checking Slack or email secretly. Yeah,
you're right. Okay, look, there is this writer called Anais Nin. She was like French-born American diarist. She had a great love for the ocean, but also she was an amazing human being with a great spirit of observation. She once said, "We do not grow absolutely or chronologically. We grow sometimes in one dimension and sometimes in another dimension. So we grow unevenly, we grow partially, we are relative, we are mature in one realm, but we are very childish in another. In which way have you grown and in which way have you not grown? Where is this imbalance for like Linda?"
Look at these questions, like a therapy session.
Yeah, this is a therapy. These are all the therapy sessions that I didn't have with my therapist, and I gotta put like on other people now.
I know. Thank you for that. Well, look, I think the role that I have now has two sides to it. And one is that more mature managerial strategic side,
Okay.
you know, where I talk to clients and we map out their vision and what they're looking for and really think quite strategically. And also I mentor people to be the best people that they can be. That's one side of me that is that more mature adult side.
Okay.
And then the other side that is probably more childlike is when I deal with the work and judging the work.
Mm-hmm.
I try to keep the adult out of that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I'm looking at work, I want to feel that and going dumb so that, you know, I actually feel these ideas. How does it affect me? And which I think is a reflection of how people out in the world will experience these. You know, it's like that first thought where I'm not getting that adult going, oh, well, that's crazy, can't do that. Or what, this has never been done before, or that's too much, or da-da-da, that voice. It's just me experiencing it.
Right.
And then, you know, because there's plenty of time to hone it and craft it and make it right. But even as we are making it, I try to keep that memory of that one thing that made it resonate with me. Because that, if we can keep that, not file down the edges and not, you know, dilute it, that's, I think, how it will resonate with people out in the world. So I try to do it like that, going dumb, and, you know, and feel it.
What about your personal life? Have you grown like on one side but not on another? I'll give an example for me. Like, you know, of course, like, you know, I grew older, but I still freaking love teddy bears. I know this is gonna make you laugh. I freaking love teddy bears. Like there was a time actually I was collecting teddy bears. And like, you know, and so if I look at the kind of habits, it really gives the perspective of a person that grew like completely uneven. So like, you know, I mature, like, you know, but I really kept that kind of childish love for teddy bears, like, you know, and didn't disappear.
Yeah.
Do you have that kind of uneven?
That's very sweet. You know, yeah, I mean, I still feel inside that I'm like a 14-year-old boy. You know, I'm up watching TikTok at 1 a.m. when I really shouldn't be, but again, I'm blocking the adult that, you know, I'm fairly immature sometimes. So I don't think we need to go into that though.
Okay, look, Point Nemo is the location in the ocean that is the farthest from the land. You can't get farther away from Point Nemo. Point Nemo, in fact, means like point of no one. It feels remote, disconnected, absent, and sometimes very scary. But it helps you put things in perspective. You feel very small when you get there and like, you know, helpless and awful at the same time. Do you ever feel the need to get away from everything? You say, we talk about unplug, but do you ever feel the need to truly like geographically put yourself in a remote location and unplug with the rest of the world? Or you are a person that constantly need to be surrounded, even though you have in your own space, but you have to have presence around?
No, thankfully I have Australia to go back to, which is probably my point, Nemo. After working in Amsterdam, took a year off. In the southernmost tip of Australia, the next point was Antarctica. It was 5 hours south of Perth, which is the most remote capital city in the world. Took a year off, lived in a little rustic cabin, got a dog, painted, read The Artist's Way, did the morning pages every day, surrounded by creatures, so many snakes, brown snakes, tiger snakes. And it was amazing. You know, people said, well, you're going to get bored in a month. I never got bored.
What's the name of this place?
It's called Denmark. It's
Denmark, like the country Denmark?
No, it's a little town, a little country town, south of Perth called Denmark. And it's, you know, it's hippies and farmers. It's wine country. It's gorgeous. So, you know, that year was amazing. I could have stayed there for a while, ran out of money. But Australia is where I go. Anywhere in Australia. Yeah.
Love it, man.
What's
Love it.
your Point Nemo? Where do you
That's
go?
my Point Nemo. It's like every page of the book is my Point Nemo. I think what happened with me is like I realized very young the power of reading, where like, you know, I was born in a very, very like, you know, in a small city near Rome. It's a medieval city. That's where the Roman used to travel to my town to extract the salt and bring it back to the capital. In fact, to this day, you can travel along the way, the same route, and it's called like the Salt Way. And you can still find like a Roman milestone along the way. So like, you know, for me, the only way to travel and reach this Point Name was going like through books, readings. And so that to me is still to this day the best way to travel, like, you know, mentally and physically. In fact, I do not read like, you know, most of people read like, you know, in the summer, like read like, you know, at the beach. For me, reading is part of life, and I don't mess it up with anything. Like, you know, if I'm at the beach, I'm at the beach. Or at night, I don't read to fall asleep. I read to escape. To me, it's totally different. Like, you know, so yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good habit. And I adore Rome. It's one of my favorite cities in the world. Love it so much. Beautiful.
Okay, we arrive at the shore, and so this is a question we asked to our guest. If there was a wind that blew your sail and you had to name it, what would the name be?
Yeah, I knew this was coming, and I was trying to come up with a creative answer to this. But, you know, really the answer is just creativity. I think that is what gets me out of bed in the morning. You know, being able to solve problems in really creative ways every day, which thankfully is our job. It never gets boring. It's always amazing to see something that wasn't there one day that's there the next. You know, I think that's it. And of course it goes beyond work. It's my personal life too. Everything in my life is all about creativity. You know, I've just done my taxes, so they're not creative. They're very by the book.
I love it. Hey, Linda, look, like, thank you so much for your time. As I said at the beginning, I truly admire your work, and I mean, it's like very happy to have you aboard. And like your ocean is quite interesting, and I will always like, you know, so all the time when I interview guests, I always like I always ends the episode, and in my mind there is always a sentence stuck with me. And for yours, is like Australia is my Point Name. It was a beautiful sentence. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. It was great to be here.
Thank you. Bye bye.